Chat, welcome to a segment of weird weather phenomenon. You have Meteorological Curiosities at your disposal. Today we're going to cover some strange happenings that happen. Weather is something we all kind of have to deal with, unless you don't leave your house, in which case you still kind of have to deal with weather. But let me get this set up properly if I can. Okay, so I want to thank the pack creator who made this, and I'll tell you who that is in just a second. We've covered a lot of topics. We've done a lot of educational segments here on the stream, and we have talked about duendes. We've talked about, I don't know, goblins. It's about the same thing. But we haven't talked about weather, and there's a chat member who's a really big weather enthusiast. So, yeah. Let's see. Who is the weather enthusiast? 634BMF01. So it says, "Hi Vinny, I've been watching your streams and highlights since 2014. And I wanted to share this idea of weather. I have a degree in atmospheric science. And have been fascinated with weather for almost 20 years, so maybe you'll learn something new." So here we go. This is Sundogs. It almost looks like there's 3 suns present here, but it's an optical illusion. Sundogs are caused when sunlight is refracted through ice crystals that are present in cirrus clouds, high wispy feathery clouds. Sundogs are more commonly seen in colder climates like the Arctic or during the winter, but can sometimes occur further south. Sundogs are seen when the sun is low in the sky, during the morning or the evening. This picture is taken in Fargo, North Dakota in 2009 and shows some very bright and clear sundogs. It's cool, it's like album cover worthy, actually, even. Why are they sundogs? That said, I don't have that information, chat member. I certainly do not. This is the fire rainbow. These are technically called circumhorizontal arcs, and they're not made of fire. Fire rainbows happen when the sun's light is refracted through plate-shaped ice crystals in cirrus and cirrostratus clouds, thin wispy clouds that are very high in the sky. They only occur when the sun is at an angle of elevation of 58 degrees or more above the horizon, in other words, quite high up in the sky. Because of this elevation requirement for the sun, you have an even better chance of seeing this at latitudes closer to the equator or during the summer, when where the sun gets higher into the sky. This fire rainbow was captured in Elk Ridge, Utah, 2023. So this is going to be one of those segments where everything I see, I'm going to be like, hey, that's an album cover. Sundogs are not actual dogs. Fire rainbows are not actual fire. World is full of lies. I know. We tend to name things in a very strange way. Lunar Halo. This one's awesome. That looks like an album cover. When the sun's rays are refracted through ice crystals high in the air, a halo can form around the sun, but one can also form around the moon, since the moon is illuminated by the light of the sun, and its light is reflected off its surface, creating moonlight. Lunar halos are very rare and usually occur only with full moons. You'll have better luck finding them in the Arctic or Antarctic, as more ice crystals are present there, but sometimes you'll see halos at latitudes closer to the equator, such as this spectacular lunar halo, which was taken at the Kitt Peak National Observatory outside of Tucson, Arizona. That doesn't strike me as a cold climate if it's Arizona, but maybe it's particularly high up. It's an observatory after all. Well, if it's Tucson, Arizona, that ice needs to get back to where it once belonged. Orange Skies Day. Vinny note here, Blade Runner 2049. As we all know, sunlight is composed of a spectrum of colors, and when it reaches our atmosphere, it is scattered by atmospheric gases, particulate matter, clouds, and water vapor. Some colors of light on the spectrum are scattered more than others, depending on the angle of the sun and what is present in the atmosphere. That scattered light turns into the colors we see in the sky and clouds. This picture was taken in San Francisco, September 2020, on a day known to residents as Orange Skies Day. As this was happening, huge wildfires were raging in Northern California, and all the smoke that was being emitted scattered the orange part of the spectrum of sun's light, causing the sky to glow an eerie orange glow, like something out of Blade Runner. Oh, there it is. Vinny might see something like this in New York City if there are wildfires up in Ontario, Quebec, upstate New York, or New England, as the winds aloft that control our weather can waft smoke very far. Now, not only did I experience this, but because of it, I didn't meet Gordon Ramsay. And if you know that story, you know that story. But let's just say if that didn't happen, there's a very, very high probability I would have met Gordon Ramsay. But at the very least, I would have been in a show with him. But yes, this does look like something out of Blade Runner. Moonbow. Like the Ronnie James Dio song, this really is a rainbow in the dark. Remember, moonlight is reflected sunlight off the surface of the moon. Moonbows form just like rainbows do, but with the moonlight being scattered through raindrops instead of sunlight. Because moonlight is not as intense as sunlight, moonbows are much harder to see with the naked eye and are always fainter than rainbows. Your best shot at seeing one clearly is taking a long exposure shot on a camera and during a full moon. This moonbow was captured in Kaihe, Hawaii. That is extremely beautiful. I really like this picture. But again, album cover. Foehn winds. It might be pronounced Fern winds. So, something to remember so the next few entries will make sense. Wind is moving air. We'll start with the type of wind called Foehn winds. These are warm, dry, downslope winds that can cause a dramatic increase in temperature down below, as much as 40 degrees Fahrenheit in just a few hours or even less. Foehn winds originate from a large body of water like an ocean or the sea. When the wind blows from the water, it carries warm or cool, moist air with it, which is forced up the mountain. As the air goes up, it cools, and all the moisture is wrung out by condensation and precipitation. Once it reaches the summit, the air is cold and dry, and that's when it starts going down the mountain. As it goes down, the air warms up, causing warm winds to blow down the mountain onto the areas below. They were originally named after the Alpenfern, winds that were thawed out the northern side of the Alps in Switzerland, Italy, Austria, and Germany. But they all have become a catch-all term for any winds that behave like it. Other examples of similar winds from around the world include the Chinook, the Zonda, Bergwind, Pulch, and Nor'wester. I hope the diagram I attached is helpful in explaining how it works. It shows you what I described as well as the temperature. It might be certain parts of the mountain. Keep in mind there are more extreme cases though. Is this the right picture for this? Oh, it is, but here's the thing. So that's what that is. I understand now. Well, this is Bora winds. Can you do Blueprint's soundtrack or something more mellow? I was thinking that. I was getting distracted by the music. I'm not really sure what the right soundtrack would be for this, actually, just in general. But I think Blueprints would be a pretty decent one. You know, chat members that make educational packs, if you do, sometimes people include soundtracks. Like, they'll include, like, a playlist. It's weirdly useful. Bora winds. Bora winds are another type of downslope winds, but instead of being warm, they're cold. They form in much the same way as the Foehn winds as described from before, but with a few differences. Bora winds originate from cold, dry land, move up the mountains, descend down the other side, bringing cold air to cities and towns below. While this air does warm as it goes down the mountain, the air the Bora initiates form is already very cold, so it's still chilly when it comes down the other side of the mountain. They were named after the real Bora winds that originate from western Russia. Below to the southeast, climbs the Dinaric Alps and comes down the... This is a very dry chat. I'm going to be real with you. It's very dry stuff. I think this is also... I'm going to be real. The chat member wanted to do 3 separate parts of weather. I think we got to go for the most... From my attention span in the chats, if we do this again, it's got to be like the best of the best weather. I want to talk like frogs falling out of the sky. I'm talking about Elmos being set on fire. But I'm sticking with it because I'm learning. This air is also dry. So the term has become a catch-all for cold downslope winds from mountains. They can reach hurricane force as pictured here. A very windy day in Antarctic can get very strong. Bora winds and similar winds are very dangerous to divers, drivers, and boats. So Foehn winds are warm downslope winds. Bora are cold downslope winds. Okay. Let me check something out here. So next is Dust Bowl. In the 1930s, the Great Plains was gripped by a long and brutal drought that caused rivers, lakes, and streams to dry up, caused entire harvests to die, brought starvation and devastating economic effects to farmers. Poor farming practices meant that when all the plants died from lack of water, the topsoil became very loose as there was not enough to hold it together. It simply blew away when the winds picked up, causing huge dust storms. Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, and Colorado were hit the hardest. The worst happened April 14th, 1935, on a day known as Black Sunday, where one of the worst dust storms in the U.S. history swept from Nebraska to Mexico. Powerful cold front whipped up winds of 50 to 60 miles per hour, and entire towns got swallowed up by a massive wall of dust. The streetlights had to be turned on because it got so dark. This picture shows the small town of Ulysses, Kansas, being swallowed up by the dust storm on that day. Is this also the impetus for Interstellar? Kind of had like Dust Bowl-like stuff, and that's why they had to leave. But yeah, I mean, that movie depicts it in a really, kind of fucked up way. All the dirt, all the dust in like your shoes, your food, just like everywhere. Sounds like a nightmare. Next is Sirocco. If you live in southern Europe, particularly Italy and Greece, you're very familiar with these winds. The Sirocco, also known as the Ghibli, yes, that's how Studio Ghibli got its name. Interesting. Are dry, sandy winds that blow from the Sahara Desert across the Mediterranean, pick up moisture while crossing the sea, go on to bring the rainfall to southern Europe mixed with sand. Huh. People in Italy call it blood rain, as the rain mixes with the red sand to make it look like it's raining blood. These winds can exceed 60 miles per hour. Then they cause people's cars to get filthy. One side effect is that the Sirocco, when combined with high tide, can push the waters of the Adriatic Sea and cause flooding in Venice. Oh. Another side effect is that anchovies from deep in the Adriatic Sea will migrate to the Gulf of Trieste near Barcelona, which means fishermen can make big money, as these anchovies are delicious. The attached picture is a satellite image of sand being carried from Libya across the Mediterranean Sea by the Sirocco. It's also very interesting. Oh, that sounds like an absolute nightmare, though. Mud rain? Don't like that. Mount Washington. The summit of Mount Washington in northern New Hampshire is home to some of the world's most volatile and miserable weather. The mountain is at a place where many storm systems converge, and winds are funneled through the valley between the surrounding mountains and accelerated by the Bernoulli effect, making Mount Washington one of the windiest places in the world. The winter is particularly miserable. Several feet of snow, winds over 100 miles per hour, and wind chills approaching minus 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind even set a record of 231 miles per hour in April 1934. This is what it often looks like at Mount Washington Observatory after a snowstorm. You can clearly tell which direction the wind was blowing. Do people live here? I mean, I'm looking at it right now. Just researchers? People die there. Yeah, basically. Just checking, like, yeah, the map and everything. I'm sure, yeah, there's people that hike. There's people that go just to see what it's like, I guess, but that sounds like a really awful place to spend too much time at. Freezing fog. Fog is caused when moist air close to the ground cools down to the dew point temperature and condenses into tiny water droplets. But in order for condensation to occur, there must be a surface to condense upon, usually tiny dust particles that are known as aerosols. Otherwise, liquid water can exist at temperatures below freezing, which is called supercooled water. The catch is that it freezes on contact with anything it touches. Freezing fog creates low visibility like regular fog and causes road and sidewalks to become slippery. Creates a glaze of ice on vehicles, trees, plants, aircraft, and anything it touches, called rime. This photo of rime that resulted from freezing fog captured by Reddit user Patient. Reddit user Patient. Huh? This seems like a good Silent Hill thing. Like maybe, you're going through a foggy town, it starts to gradually freeze over. And it's like that kind of shit. Looks cool. Also, I would imagine freezing fog would not feel great to breathe. That sounds painful. Fallstreak hole. These are circular or elliptical shaped holes that appear in layers or patches of altocumulus, that's 6,000 to 20,000 feet, or cirrocumulus, which is greater than 20,000 feet, clouds, both of which are puffy, cotton ball shaped clouds that often develop in groups high in the sky. Both of these types of clouds are made of supercooled water droplets that freeze on contact with something or when disturbed and fall. It starts a domino effect where more supercooled water freezes and falls, resulting in a hole in the clouds appearing. Airplanes flying through the cloud can also trigger fallstreak holes. This picture is of a fallstreak hole over La Crosse, Wisconsin. Do you think it's like weirdly ironic, maybe not the right word, but just weirdly coincidental that this hole in the clouds over Wisconsin looks like cheese? Yeah. Cumulonimbus clouds. If you have megalophobia, look away. These massive clouds mean a storm is coming. I've seen quite a few living my whole life in Kansas, and assure you they are big. Very, very big. As in, they take up the whole horizon big. But how do they form? On warm, sticky spring and summer days, warm, moist air may be inhibited from rising by an even warmer layer of air further aloft known as the cap. But something like a cold front or a dry line can force that warm, moist air up. But through the cap breaking it once this happens. This is formatted strange. Once this happens, bubbles of warm, moist air we call parcels can freely rise. This is because as you go higher, the temperatures drop, and due to the difference in temperature inside and outside these bubbles, they're positively buoyant. Condensation occurs as these parcels rise higher into the sky, causing them to, there's a weird word here, cool, a process that lasts until the temperature inside the bubble equalizes with, I don't know what's happening. Chat, I'm reading this and it's like, my brain is glazing over reading this. By this point, you have what looks like a massive mountain of cloud that can reach 60,000 to 70,000 feet tall. The Cumulonimbus cloud was taken on a summer day over Denver, Colorado. So I think for me, for a segment like this, I think it needs to be much more like kind of, look at this cool picture, here's a general idea of what happens, because I'm not absorbing this information, I'm sorry. Anvil clouds and overshooting tops. Some of it's really good, but there's a few things that it's getting so into the weeds. I'm reading this for the first time too, so sorry. But I'm going to commit from here on out. I'm fully committing to this segment, so here we go. When a cumulonimbus cloud appears, it means a thunderstorm is nearby. A more powerful variant is called a supercell thunderstorm, which occurs more often here in the Great Plains and Midwest than in New York. If conditions are favorable for supercells, the cumulonimbus cloud develops but grows at an explosive rate. The storm builds and builds until it reaches the point in the atmosphere where there is a temperature inversion called tropopause, and that's where the storm basically hits the ceiling. An Anvil cloud appears at the top of the cumulonimbus cloud. Parcels can no longer rise once they reach the thing. Yeah. In the updraft of the storm, the warm, moist air is rising so fast it can penetrate the stratosphere in what is called an overshooting top. If you see a storm cloud with an anvil and an overshooting top, you'd better run for cover. Supercells mean big trouble, as they can produce destructive hail, strong winds, cloud-to-ground lightning, heavy rain, and destructive tornadoes. This picture was taken 50 miles away from supercell storm that hit Abilene, Kansas just after sunset and dropped baseball-sized hail on the town. You can clearly see the anvil and the overshooting top. Shelf clouds. These menacing-looking clouds are a sign that trouble is afoot. They form along the gust front, the leading edge of powerful winds moving in from the downdraft of a line of thunderstorms. These winds usually precede the rain by a few minutes and can knock over tree branches and utility poles, flip over tractor trailers, and damage homes and buildings. Shelf clouds have often been compared to the mothership flying above town, like Independence Day. This was a shelf cloud taken from a storm that rolled through Sarpy County, Nebraska. Man, it's just like right in that one area of the United States. It's just all of it. You guys get some pretty fucked up weather. I found this image on Wikipedia Commons to avoid copyright infringement. Can't find much more on this storm than that. Keep in mind, most shelf clouds are not this well sculpted, but if they are, it means trouble. Roll clouds. Let's see. These are similar to shelf clouds, but can also form ahead of the incoming storms, or along a cold front, independent of any thunderstorms. Unlike shelf clouds, the roll clouds are not attached to the storm if they form ahead of one. But they can also form on clear days with no storm at all, which is where things get weird. They're caused by wind shear in the atmosphere, which is when the wind changes in magnitude and direction with the height that can cause things to spin or create vortices. These roll clouds were captured on Sable Island in Nova Scotia. These are cool. Now, I know Chad is going to be mature about this and contain themselves like adults. But I also know these are usually formed on the underside of cumulonimbus clouds. They can be found in other scenarios, but when you see these on storm clouds, it means get your ass indoors because it's going to be a wicked storm. I, the guy who submitted the pack, have also personally seen mammatus clouds bubble before, which is because they're the result of vigorous convection activity. going on in the sky. In other words, a big storm brewing that can bring wind, hail, and tornadoes. Pilots are advised never to fly into these clouds due to extreme turbulence. This picture was taken in Cedar Rapids, Iowa in May 2023. The storm was dropping baseball-sized hail at one point before passing south of town and even dropping a tornado east of Iowa City. Tornado. That's pretty neat. Lenticular clouds. These are some of the weirdest clouds you'll ever see, and you'll usually see them downwind of mountains or another large topographic barrier. Moist, stable air is forced up the mountain by what is called orographic lift, which results in atmospheric wave on the leeward side of the mountain. If conditions are sufficient, the air will condense into cloud at the crest of the waves, resulting in lenticular clouds. The cloud evaporates at the troughs of the wave and then condensates again at the crest, making it look like a floating disc. I don't know. They have been mistaken for UFOs. Pilots are advised to never fly into these clouds as they will encounter extreme turbulence. This picture was taken at the Arctowski Station in Antarctica. I also have a video here so you can see what it looks like. You can see a time lapse. It seems pretty interesting. I think I've seen this one before, actually. This is really cool. Just that mountain and that cloud. They just really enjoy each other's company. Death Mountain. All right, well, it was nice for a minute until you said that, and now it's evil. It looks like the mountain was absorbing some of the cloud. Yeah, that one is genuinely really cool. Nacreous clouds are next. Ooh, those are nice too. Also known as mother of pearl clouds, these shiny rainbow-looking clouds form in the polar regions of Earth, very high up in the sky, up in the lower stratosphere. Nacreous clouds form from ice crystals that form at altitudes of 49,000 to 82,000 feet, where the temperature may plunge to negative 108 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. They're best seen at twilight, just before the sun rises above the horizon, or just after the sun sinks below it. As pretty as nacreous clouds are, they're also destructive to our ozone layer when they interact with CFCs and chlorinated gases released into the air by our factories. Most CFCs have been outlawed since 1994, but there are other chemicals we release into the air that harm the ozone layer. These nacreous clouds were captured by Reddit user Beavis Simpson. Those are cool. Again, that's like Aurora Borealis mixed with clouds. Thank you, Beavis Simpson Reddit user, for these, because that's a genuinely great photo. Okay, this is Noctilucent clouds. These are like nacreous clouds, but they form even higher in the sky, all the way up in the mesosphere. They form about 50 miles up in the sky from ice crystals that form at temperatures below negative 184 degrees Fahrenheit, making them the highest clouds on Earth. Like nacreous clouds, they're best seen at twilight, but unlike nacreous clouds, they usually cannot be seen within the Arctic or Antarctic Circle. You still have to get close to the poles, but just not too close. Us Americans would probably have better luck in the middle of Canada seeing these clouds. Spacecraft may also play a role, as they sometimes disturb the atmosphere enough while flying into space to trigger Noctilucent, I had it before. Noctilucent clouds. This picture was taken at twilight in Buryatia, a territory of Russia, in 2021. The Noctilucent clouds, that's Noctilucent. Oh, I think that makes sense. Noctilucent, night lucent. Yeah. Noctilucent clouds are the light blue wavy stuff. They're really cool too. I will never see those clouds. Ooh. Morning glory clouds. We're learning about clouds today on Sunday Stream, on the Vinesauce Variety Stream Wacky Silly Man channel. But some of it's really cool. I just get lost in the details. The phenomenon can happen in other places, but it's most reliably found on the Cape York Peninsula in Australia, the big pointy part in the northeast. It is not completely understood how this happens, but it starts at night when the ground cools and the sea is warmer than it. Air will then move from the warmer ocean to the cooler land, resulting in an easterly wind from the Coral Sea and westerly wind from the Gulf of Carpentaria, each of them called a sea breeze. These sea breezes collide and create an atmospheric wave. That's cool. Roll clouds develop at the crests of these waves and evaporate at the troughs, which make it appear the clouds are moving. These roll clouds can reach over 600 miles long and are a big attraction for thrill seekers who want to surf the clouds with a hang glider. The fuck? New game idea just dropped. Morning glory ends when the sun rises high enough and warms up the ground, reversing the sea breeze, terminating the atmospheric wave. This is a series of morning glory clouds over Burketown, Australia. I mean, it looks awesome. I could just see a game like Pilot Wings. You know, something really fun where you just do Pilot Wings things, but the graphics are awesome. Oakville blobs. I know what this looks like, chat. Please contain yourselves and act mature. There's a segment on unsolved mysteries dedicated to this. At 3 a.m. on August 7th, 1994, it was raining in the small town of Oakville, Washington. But instead of water, it was a mysterious gelatinous substance. This happened 6 times over the next 3 weeks. People reportedly got very sick from the goo falling from the sky, and some animals and pets even died from it. A microbiologist found out that the goo was teeming with bacteria. One of the more outlandish theories says it was pieces of jellyfish that had been blown to bits by practice bombing runs in the Pacific. Little pieces of them somehow ended up 50 miles inland. Some believe it was secret testing for a biological weapon. But the mystery is still unsolved to this day, and the blobs have not fallen again in Oakville in over 30 years. This picture may be a dramatization of what it looked like. I was hoping that was real. You know, can't stop coming to Rio, Washington. It could also be alien refuse. You know, they have to drop it somewhere. Hail Alley. You may have heard of Tornado Alley, but do you know about Hail Alley? The stretch of America and Canada are the most hail-prone parts of each country. Hail Alley stretches from the deep south Texas to the middle of Alberta, running alongside the Rocky Mountains and covering much of the Great Plains. Hail is a big Hail is a big problem here due to the high elevation, meaning that the point in a storm where the temperature dips below freezing is lower in altitude. So hail doesn't have to fall as far to reach the ground. Colorado and Wyoming in particular have a big hail problem, costing residents and small businesses thousands of dollars in siding, windows, cars, crops, and aircraft. Sometimes they get so much hail in a storm it drifts like snow. This was the case in Yuma, Colorado, May 2024. This is by Reddit user Met76. Thank you, Reddit. That's a lot of fucking hail, though. God, we get in New York, we don't get... It depends. I mean, we have hurricane season. But once in a while, we get really fucked up winds. Hail, not too much. There's been only a little hail that I can remember in my lifetime. But once in a while, we just get, like, crazy winds, and that'll knock down, like, trees and, like, branches and, you know, fuck shit up at home. But you know, weather here in New York is interesting. I mean, you get really humid, hot days in the summer, and you get some really beautiful spring and fall days too. But it's basically, we just get a little bit of everything. And winter can be gross. So far this winter, I mean, is it even winter yet, technically? Jesus. Not looking forward to the next 4 months, but regardless, it is definitely, it's been kind of mild. I went for a walk yesterday in Manhattan. I just needed to clear me head. And you know what? It was cold. But once you get moving, it's not too bad. It's the wind that's really the annoying part. And it wasn't windy, really. It was a little bit, but not too bad. So... But yeah, not too much hail here. Vivian SD hailstone. This is the largest individual hailstone ever recorded. It fell outside of the small town of Vivian, South Dakota, measuring at 8 inches in diameter, or close to the size of a soccer ball. It weighed 2 pounds. Hail forms when droplets of water are carried up by the updraft and freeze into hail embryos, tens of thousands of feet into the storm, and grow by accumulating supercooled water high into the clouds until it's too heavy for the updraft and plunges to the ground. This particular hailstone must have caught a particularly strong part of the updraft. When the Weather Channel talks about a storm producing X-sized hail, that's usually an average. Individual hailstones can get even larger. The storm that dropped the Vivian hailstone had to be dropping softball to grapefruit-sized hail, but I'd be more concerned about a tornado at that point. Even so, hail this large is more than capable of trashing homes, aircraft, cars, breaking windows, destroying crops, and killing people and animals. So I was going to say, this is murder hail. This is just straight up, like, do not be anywhere near outside. I would imagine even baseball-sized hail. Like, that seems like that would give you some serious fucking brain damage. Crazy. Virga. This is when precipitation evaporates before reaching the ground as a result of a layer of dry air present at the ground. You see visible streaks of rain or snow, but you don't feel any. What you get is what looks like dark-colored streaks, wisps or smears coming down from the clouds that do not touch the ground. This is common in the desert and on the high plains. If there's lightning present with Virga, you have a dry thunderstorm, which is very dangerous because the lightning will start a wildfire. This is Lake Pueblo, Colorado. Remember that Virga does not touch the ground. It kind of looks like it does, but yeah, I guess it's not. Three Gorges Dam. Huh? This is the Three Gorges Dam, the largest hydroelectric dam in the world, located outside Shandong, China, holding back the mighty Yangtze River. This dam was the culmination of decades of planning and study, and had been at the top of the list for China's proposed infrastructure before completion in 2012. That's because the Yangtze River Valley has a lot of problems with flooding, and two of the worst happened in 1931 and 1935. Both floods resulted from melting snow in the mountains dribbling down the slope and heavy monsoon rains. Both floods ended up killing millions of people in total. not only because of cities destroyed and people drowning, but from starvation that ensued after harvests were destroyed, resulting outbreaks of diseases like cholera. These two floods are considered among, if not the worst in human history. The Three Gorges Dam was built to prevent something like this from happening again. If it were to break, that would be very, very bad. Imagine that. This is an insane feat of human engineering. But yeah, that is something that cannot fail. It's mental. Flash Flood Alley. You may have heard this term recently in the news after that campground in Texas got flooded. Well, that campground is what is known as Flash Flood Alley. This part of Texas has a lot of trouble with flash floods. So, due to hilly terrain, soils that can't absorb water very well, and violent thunderstorms that have access to copious amounts of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. As a result, you get lots of flash floods, where the rivers can get out of control really fast. Even worse is all these quickly growing cities in the way. Thousands of homes, roads, and businesses are in danger. Remember, chat, do not ever drive into floodwaters. It only takes a foot or two of fast-moving water to sweep your car or even truck away. Water is powerful. This looks like cabbage. North Sea storms. Limes and maybe Joel could probably tell you a thing or two about this. The North Sea is one of the roughest and stormiest bodies of water in the world. Powerful cyclonic systems lash northern Europe every winter, bringing fierce winds and huge waves. The North Sea is shallow, only about 300 feet. It doesn't take much to whip up huge waves of up to 80 feet. 80-foot waves, huh? There's a link here. Let's see. Oh, that's crazy. All right, I'll show you that in a minute. These storms also cause a lot of tidal flooding, particularly in western Denmark, the Netherlands, the German Bight, and eastern England. The worst of these happened in the winter of 1953. On January 31st, a powerful cyclonic storm combined with high tide caused massive waves, strong winds, and extensive tidal flooding, particularly in the Netherlands, with much of the country being near or below sea level. And in England, where the water started backing up into the River Thames, allowing floodwater to reach miles inland. Thousands of homes, businesses, beaches, and farms were inundated with frigid water. Several boats and fishing trawlers were sunk, and floodwaters reached up to 18 feet above sea level. Nearly 2,500 people died from the flood, including many sailors who drowned and whose boats became one of the hundreds of shipwrecks in the North Sea. In response, infrastructure like the Thames Barrier and Delta Works were constructed to prevent a scene pictured here from ever happening again. So here's an example of waves that could reach that high. This is actually genuinely like one of my fears. This is waves reaching an oil rig's windows. That oil rig horror game I played. Oh my god. You know, it was a really good game, and the flooding and the water stuff was cool. But you know what? This seems even more fucking scary in some ways than Still Wakes the Deep, right? Yeah, than cosmic horror. But these have to be like. These places have to be able to handle that kind of thing. So it's probably fine, but yeah, that's freaky as fuck. So here's lightning. We're gonna go. This is the lightning chapter now. All right, and this explains how lightning works. For the next entry to make sense, you must complete the tutorial for understand how lightning forms. I feel like this diagram from a TV news station is the best supplement for this. There are still parts science doesn't understand, but this is the working explanation. All right, here we go. When a thunderstorm develops, water droplets and ice crystals rub against each other and exchange electrons like rubbing a balloon against your hair. The lighter, positively charged particles are carried up to the top of the storm by the updraft, while the negatively charged ones stay close to the base of the storm, causing it to become polarized like a battery when you put in like a battery you put in a flashlight. But air is extremely poor at conducting electricity, so the charges are stuck in place until enough of them gather to overcome the electrical resistance of air. When they do, the negative charges start moving towards the positive charges, either in the clouds or on the ground, in paths called stepped leaders. The positive charges move in paths called streamers, not to be confused with Vinny, towards the stepped leaders until they meet, completing a circuit causing lightning to strike. Usually this process is contained within the clouds, but conceptually, people understand it easier if the diagram shows the ground. More on that in the next entry. Sean and Michael McQuilkin, or McQuilkin. This hair-raising family photo taken of two brothers in 1976 ended up becoming a PSA for lightning. How did this happen? Well, remember how I said the base of the storm is negatively charged? What happens is the negative charges at the base repel electrons on the ground, causing the ground itself and things on it that can conduct electricity, like people, to become positively charged. This is more likely in stronger storms because they have more vigorous convection going on and allow for more intense polarization inside the storm cloud. Sean and Michael McQuilkin's positively charged hair was standing on end as it was attracted to the negative charges at the base of the storm cloud. When enough charges in the cloud and the boys gathered to overcome the electrical resistance of the air, the negative leader came out of the cloud and the positive streamer came from the McQuilkins. And when they met, they got struck by lightning. They lived, but were badly burned and probably had permanent nerve damage. Oh no. And it looks like they're having a great time. I guess this is just before the lightning struck. God damn, that sucks. Wow. Bolt from the blue. Just because you're not underneath a thunderstorm doesn't mean you're completely safe from lightning. One of the scariest phenomena of weather is when lightning strikes from what appears to be a clear sky, commonly known as a bolt from the blue. This is what is called a positive lightning strike. It's a surefire sign a storm is near. This happens when a positive streamer initiates from the top of a storm cloud and creates a negative leader on the ground by attracting negative charges. I don't know, man. This means you can hear thunder. You are close enough to be struck by lightning. These bolts from the blue are much stronger than your average lightning strike, and as leaders and streamer must go a very long ways to meet and overcome much more electrical resistance. These lightning strikes are more likely to kill you, fry electronics and power grids, and set houses on fire. This picture was taken by Fox 13 meteorologist Paul Delgado in Venice, Florida. The lightning strike hit 7 miles away from the thunderstorm it came from. Imagine being there. You don't see a storm cloud, and a bolt of lightning comes down from the sky. Lightning always freaked me out. I mean, now it's not so bad. It's just kind of annoying, but I still, chat, if there's a thunderstorm and there's lightning, I have this thing. I can't help it. I run a little bit. Maybe not run, I just walk a little faster from my car to wherever I'm going. Just a little bit faster. It's silly, but, you know, I flee. I also have, there's a lot of like kind of probably misconceptions, but if I have my keys or if I'm holding something like a guitar, or I have one on my back, I'm like, that will conduct electricity and I will die. Better safe than sorry, I guess. Ball lightning, one of my favorite mysteries of weather. It's like something out of Dragon Ball or Street Fighter, but it's real. This phenomenon is so rare and happens so fast, very little documentation exists. Scientists are still not 100% sure it's real. This picture, taken in Japan in 1988, is one of the only known pictures of ball lightning. People who have seen it described it as bright glowing balls of plasma from the size of a pebble to a few meters wide that may float in place, move erratically, or even explode. Also aliens. Derecho is next. These are fast-moving, long, narrow, but extremely intense lines of storms that are very dangerous to both life and property. They look menacing when you see them come through, and they bring powerful, destructive winds of 60 to 80 miles per hour. It's not unusual for winds in a derecho to exceed 100 miles per hour. These storms will probably pass you by in less than 20 to 30 minutes, but it will be some of the most intense storms you'll ever see. Derechos cause numerous power outages and tree branches to break off, or even entire trees to come crashing down. They can tear off siding, gutters, and even cause roof and wall failure. They can even spawn tornadoes with no warning. This picture was taken in Indiana in June 2012 during a major derecho. The system traveled from Iowa all the way to the Atlantic Ocean and had several reports of 70 to 80 mile per hour winds, with gusts even exceeding 90 miles per hour, causing numerous power outages and building damage. There's a reason that movie Twister got popular. It's because shit like this, just inclement, horrible weather, is really fascinating, but also incredibly scary. Again, I mean, I've been through, Hurricane Irene, Hurricane Sandy. Hurricane Sandy fucked Staten Island up, but luckily New York isn't too bad when it comes to like extreme weather. Not regularly, at least. Green skies. As mentioned before, stuff in our atmosphere scatters certain colors of light from the incoming sunlight. Ice crystals and developing hailstones in a thunderstorm scatter the green part of the spectrum of incoming sunlight, causing the sky to glow an eerie green. I've seen this happen a few times here in Kansas City, and when it happens, it means a bad storm is coming, including one that can bring a tornado. This picture was taken July 2022 when a violent derecho came through Sioux Falls, South Dakota, bringing winds of up to 100 miles per hour, tornadoes, and large hail. But it's unusual for a derecho to be glowing and eerie, otherworldly green like this. Usually they just make the sky very, very dark. Now imagine this and storms, and you're living in like 800, and it destroys your house, your crops. It fucks up so much of your life. And then you start questioning what you or others did wrong. And then you realize you're in a gangster's paradise, like Sonic the Hedgehog. It would seem otherworldly. It would actually seem like fucking crazy, and you'd be like, what have I done, Lord? Heat burst. When a thunderstorm dies, the downdraft cuts off its own updraft and severs it from its own supply of warm, moist air, causing the storm to collapse. Rain inside the storm may evaporate and cool the surrounding air if it's not enough moisture to sustain any additional storms. This cool air descends towards the ground, but because air pressure increases as you descend, the air is compressed, and by ideal gas law becomes hotter. Once it reaches the ground, it spreads out, brings very hot and windy conditions. The temperature can increase by 20 degrees Fahrenheit or even more in just minutes. Heat bursts often occur at night and in the Great Plains states where the air stabilizes at night. I hope this diagram is helpful in explaining how this happens. Yeah? Catatumbo lightning. The lagoon in western Venezuela, erroneously named Lake Maracaibo, is the most lightning-struck place in the world. The swampy estuary at the mouth of Catatumbo River is uniquely positioned for frequent and long-lasting thunderstorms with a light show's worth of lightning. I was here in Final Fantasy X, I'm pretty sure. Warm, moist air from above the bay and the Caribbean Sea repeatedly clash with the cooler air coming down from the Colombian Andes, resulting in thunderstorms that can last for up to 10 hours or longer. These storms happen up to 300 times a year, with between 16 and 40 lightning strikes per minute, which adds up to over 1 million lightning strikes per year. Catatumbo means House of Thunder in Bari. This picture doesn't do it justice. See, that's another thing, is like, it's swampy, but I'm wondering, like, does anyone live near enough that they just deal with the lightning? I don't know. But here, check this out. I got a video of exactly this. So this is going to be like a flashing light warning. So, just as an example, this is how much lightning. I wonder if any animals live here, and if they also just, obviously there's animals that live here. They just get used to it. Like, goddamn. This is an 1.5 hour long video. Holy shit. Genuinely crazy. I didn't even know a place like that existed on Earth. That's nuts. Just hours and hours of lightning. St. Elmo's fire. No Rob Lowe here. This eerie, mysterious blue discharge is a sign of an electrically charged atmosphere. Usually when flying or sailing through a thunderstorm, it's a warning sign that lightning could strike. It's been known to gather around pointy surfaces on boats, like the bow or the tips of the mast, or on aircraft, like the nose, the tips of the wings, or the propellers, as well as lightning rods on buildings. Look at the blue glowing things at the tips of the flap tracks of this plane flying through a storm. That's St. Elmo's fire. The plane is flying through an electrically charged environment. It's cool. It's also, speaking of Final Fantasy, another Final Fantasy villain, or villain enemy. It's in Final Fantasy VII, if I'm not mistaken. Dust devils. These are tornado-like vortices that develop on clear, calm, and hot days, usually in the desert or in arid climates. Sun may heat up in a particular spot more than others, causing a pocket of air above it to heat up and rise. A small pocket of low pressure develops, air comes rushing in to fill it and resolve the differences in pressure. A vortex is created that draws in dust or sand, and a dust devil appears. The vortex lasts until the pressure difference is resolved and kills off the vortex, causing the dust devil to disappear. They're usually harmless and rarely grow strong enough to do any serious damage. This picture was taken in Arizona, where dust devils frequently occur. Boy, doing all these reading segments at the very end of a 5-hour stream at 1:30 in the morning, probably a great idea. Steam devils. These are similar to dust devils, but instead of dust, they draw in fog or mist. Water takes a long time and a lot of energy gained, lost to heat up or become cold. So when a cold snap happens over a large body of water, the water is still very warm compared to the air above it. The cold air moving across the water heats up, rises and condenses into fog. If there's a huge difference between the temperature of the air and water, the air rises so quickly it becomes unstable and forms vortices which draw in the fog, and steam devil appears. Did I read that already? Steam devils do not last long, are usually gone after a few minutes. They were first documented on camera in 1971 in Lake Michigan, and on that day the air temperature was -6 degrees Fahrenheit, while the water temperature was 33 degrees Fahrenheit. This picture of a steam devil was taken by a National Weather Service meteorologist over Lake Champlain in 2023. So we're getting to the end of the night. The segment still has plenty of entries, but I got a couple more cool ones I want to cover. This one is very cool. This is a waterspout. So waterspouts are related to tornadoes, but are weaker in terms of wind speed. For the most of the world outside of the United States, this is the closest thing they will see to a tornado. Waterspouts are very common in the Florida Keys, but also in the Mediterranean Sea, the Baltic Sea, Great Lakes, Black Sea, southeastern Asia, and the east coast of Australia. Despite being weaker than tornadoes, they are very dangerous to watercraft and small boats, as they can cause them to capsize or even sink. This picture was taken off the Florida Keys in 1969. It's one of the most used stock photos of waterspouts. It always looks unnerving, especially with how it creates a whirlpool. It's a great photo. Multiple vortex tornadoes. The strongest of tornadoes often exhibit a multiple vortex structure, where the main vortex is so strong it breaks up into smaller sub-vortices inside the main one. Think baby tornadoes inside a mama tornado. These sub-vortices are extremely dangerous and very powerful and can cause small swaths of extreme damage in unpredictable places in the path. This is why you hear stories about one guy's house completely flattened in a tornado, but the guy down the street's house is untouched. One of the most well-known and first documented examples to hit Xenia, Ohio, 1974, during one of the worst tornado outbreaks in history. The tornado would go on to kill 36 and destroy half of the town. This video was taken by a then young man named Bruce Boyd and shows smaller subvortices whipping around inside the main funnel. The footage here is stitched together with a tape recording of the tornado passing by someone's apartment. Doesn't look very impressive at first, but towards the end, when the tornado becomes more visible, you can really see its multiple vortex structure. I think this is it. In fact, that is it. Yeah. The thing we saw that was on the screen a moment ago might not be it. That was Dead Man Walking. I'll tell you about that in a minute. That's the picture you were looking at. This is actually the supplemental material for the entry I had there. It's a shame, too, because now we're getting into, like, tornadoes and fucking hurricanes, and it's really, really cool stuff. But, unfortunately, I am now tired and having a really hard time reading this. Because, my voice is a little sore. But anyway, this is really cool. Honestly, this segment is awesome. But the clouds, it went a little long in the cloud section. And it gets a little too wordy. So I'm down for a part 2 of this. But I think more stuff like this, more stuff like just weird, like the St. Elmo's fire. It doesn't have to be fully explained. You know what I mean? Like, to me at least. I feel like that's something that, just to get people intrigued, and myself included, it could be maybe a little bit more layman's terms. That's my opinion. You know, this is someone's expertise. This is someone's, like, special interest. And for me, I'm looking at this and I'm watching and I'm like, holy fucking shit, that's crazy. But when it comes to the finer details, it's just me reading and being confused. So I think for next time, you know, we can find a way to tighten up the graphics on level 3 a little bit. This is Dead Man Walking, by the way. So I'll just read about this real quick. The haunting picture is a tornado that hit Jarrell, Texas, 1997, as it intensified and acquired multiple vortex structure. The picture is titled Dead Man Walking because the multiple vortices whipping around makes it look like a pair of legs. Legend has it you can see a tornado like this. When you see a tornado like this, someone's not going to make it out alive. The tornado pictured here went on to reduce the Double Creek subdivision to sawdust, with almost no survivors. 27 people died, including 3 entire families. And homes and cars were so thoroughly destroyed, very few identifiable pieces were even left of them. Even the plumbing from inside the ground started to get ripped out. The tornado was extremely violent, moved very slow, so whatever got hit, the tornado just kept grinding away at it. You don't want to know what it did to cows. Twin tornadoes. Sometimes there will be satellite tornadoes revolving around the main tornado, or 2 separate large tornadoes entirely. They can tear through the countryside as separate entities, or even merge and have one consume the other. One of the most well-known cases happened in Pilger, Nebraska in 2014. 2 separate destructive tornadoes leveled the small town and made for some unforgettable storm chasing. They were present at the same time, mind you. Hang on a moment. There's also a video included for this one. Talk about people that have either big balls or like they're just out of their goddamn minds, but people that drive into like storms, like storm chasers. That is actually insane footage. Demo video, not for broadcast. Well, this is on the channel Storm Chasing Video, as you can see right there. So, you know, go to it if you want. I was going to say, one of the things that I really like about the game Skies of Arcadia is it deals with, like, insane weather phenomenon, kind of. Like, phenomena, not none. And it like, has a lot of, scenes and moments of like crazy fucked up storms, and that's kind of why I want to see that game remade or a sequel, because as you're flying around in the skies of Arcadia, you encounter like shit like this, and it really feels like, you know, you're just this small thing, and it's really cool. What else do we have here? Do we have something else here? Just curious. Ground scouring. The strongest of tornadoes are capable of incredible feats of destruction. One of them being extensive ground scouring, where it digs a trench into the ground from the insane concentrated wind erosion. This picture was taken outside Philadelphia, Mississippi. Oh, in April 27, 2011. This was a grassy field before the tornado. The outskirts of town were hit by a violent tornado that got so strong at one point it basically dug a trench in the ground up to 2 feet deep. It even stripped up asphalt from the road like peeling skin off of an orange. I think I have to leave you with this one, but it's a good one. Big city tornadoes. A myth I've seen too often is that big cities are immune to tornadoes. That's a lie. Big cities can, have, and do get hit by tornadoes, including strong, even violent ones. Dallas, Fort Worth, Waco, Kansas City, Indianapolis, all of these big cities. Oh, sorry, there's more. Topeka? Shreveport? Is that how you say that? Shreveport? Yeah, anyway, Atlanta. Might have said that. Lubbock. All these cities have had their downtown areas hit by a tornado at one point in history. It'll happen again someday, and it won't be pretty. Pictured here is a tornado that hit Miami, Florida in 1997. It was a weak tornado, sure, but it produced some mesmerizing and terrifying pictures. Florida gets a lot of tornadoes every year, rarely destructive. But I can't say the same about the latter for the rest of the Deep South or the Great Plains or Midwest. Yeah, I didn't even know. Crazy. A tornado touched down 2 minutes away from my house about a week ago here in Houston. People thought it couldn't ever possibly happen, but it completely demolished entire houses. Yeah, shit be crazy, and shit might get crazier. You never know. It depends, because atmospheric changes, whether unnatural or natural, shit does happen. The Earth goes through cycles, and, you know, things heat up, they cool down, and, you know, we've only been recording this shit for what, like 150 years at this point? Obviously, our records go back a little further, but it gets spottier after that. So, you know, imagine how much stuff has happened. Imagine the insane shit that has happened on this planet that we never were aware of, or like one guy saw it and that was it. Like multiple supercell tornadoes. There's also consider other planets too. That would be, I mean, anything space I really like. That was like one of my favorite topics when I was growing up. Astronomy is very fascinating to me, but there are incredibly destructive forces of weather on other planets, and just weird like moons like Io, and yeah, the big red spot on Jupiter. Yeah, I think about that too. But anyway, chat member who made this, I'm sorry for the, you know, I'm sorry for the, I guess, not even criticism really, but that it was starting to, you know, get a little tough for me to get through this. I like it. I think there is a lot of really fascinating stuff here. I think as a kind of a future thing, if you're really into a topic, it is worth dumbing it down a little bit. I also tend to prefer slightly shorter text entries in general. And I also would say, you know, when a chat member, this has happened a lot now for like the sea and like space stuff and this pack, I'll ask for an estimate. And the estimate for this pack was 1 hour. I think I've been doing this about an hour and a half, and I only made it through 45 out of 60 slides, so to speak. So I think chat members, if you're gonna, you know, I really appreciate these educational segments. I think it is something unique, something really interesting. I do learn. Chat likes them. I like them. But, you know, when it's for a new audience, it can take longer. And, you know, it takes me a while to read. So if you're submitting a pack and say there's a lot of entries, I think an hour to an hour and 15 minutes is the sweet spot for me. That's about as much as I can read for in one go after a long stream. So definitely err on the side of a little shorter, and be aware that your estimates may be shorter than mine. So, but thank you so much. I really like doing this. That's why I kind of, have these critiques and I want to continue doing them, but, some adjustments here and there. For example, the stuff today, like, with the clouds, we got really into the clouds. But there's more stuff that's probably really cool. So I would definitely do a pack. The next pack has more hurricanes and like tornadoes and shit, and it looks really interesting. But I think best of the best for the next pack, chat member. Thank you all, everybody, for watching tonight. I really appreciate your patience. I appreciate your desire to learn. Y'all motherfuckers were here to learn, and that's what matters. And we learned about some shit. And I'm excited to do more segments like this. I definitely want to do, there's like archaeology, there's dinosaurs. I get to them when I can. I like Sunday stream to have variety. Like if I do a pack of games that I'm going through like 8 to 12 games in a segment, then maybe I like to do something long form. Or maybe I like to do, commercials, then games. I watch some stuff that's not a game and then do games. So I try to form these Sunday streams around what would be interesting for 5 hours for me and you. I've been doing this 15 years. I want to keep it interesting for me too. And not just have pack of games, pack of games, pack of games, pack of games. So, I do my best, and I try to figure this shit out. And it is a little stressful to get it all together, in a day. So I appreciate those that have been helping out. It makes my life a little easier. Thank you so much. And hopefully this week I can get to Zelda 2 and finish up the Rotten Seed. And we got Metroid Prime 4 on Thursday, which I will be playing early. Chat, tomorrow's also an early stream. It'll be probably closer to 1:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. And I don't know if it'll be Zelda 2. I think I'll save that for Tuesday. So tomorrow will probably be just whatever. Platformers. Who knows? But yeah, stop by tomorrow, 1:30 Eastern p.m. if you want. And then Tuesday, Wednesday should be normal time. So yeah, that's it, chat. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Good night. I'll rest my voice now. Tomorrow could be Kirby, yeah.